Hi everybody, welcome to this next episode of In Conversation with Sinfonia Cymru. Today I'm very excited to be joined by my very good friend and violinist in the orchestra, Simmy Singh. Sim's been playing with Sinfonia Cymru for a few years now, and I'm really looking forward to getting into some interesting topics with her and sharing those with you all. Hi Sim, lovely to see you. Hiya. Where have you been spending these last few months?
Well, for a lot of it, I was actually in London. I kind of moved there about a year ago and hadn't spent a lot of time there, actually. So it was really nice to get a bit of time to set some roots and get to know the area. But after a few months, quite quickly started missing the land of Wales and the homeland. So kind of when the first opportunity came, just went back home to my parents' house, and so I've been kind of between the two places since then, and now in Wales at the moment.
Great. Yeah, we've talked often, haven't we, about how we both love to sort of retreat to the countryside, whether it's to sort of take some time off work, or sometimes it's actually to go and kind of get more creative energy and actually renew ourselves and get even more excited about the work that we do. What is it about specifically the Welsh countryside and the Welsh culture that sort of gets your creative juices flowing?
Oh, I don't know. I guess, there's always, wherever you grow up, there's that sense of like belonging and nostalgia. So I think because I left home when I was, 16, I think I have a bit of like a stronger feeling of that when I come back. And I don't know, there's just something about the countryside, and it's so full of myths and legends, and it's very modest, so it's not like crazy dramatic landscapes. It's just really beautiful rolling hills, and I don't know, there's just something about it that for me feels different. And then you'll go past someone and you'll get a hello, and it's the kind of Welsh spirit that comes with it. And I think, completely countryside, I find, or just being with nature, is so conducive to creativity, and especially in the last few months I felt like I really needed that. And it was good to have to force myself to find that in the city, but I just feel like when you're trying to really delve deep or really wanting to explore kind of how you feel, just being with nature and being, out in the outdoors just really brings that to the forefront and just feels very right. I think, I've lived in cities all my life, but I will always be a country girl at heart.
Oh yeah, I mean it's so lovely to hear you talking like that, because it's so true how sort of special that environment can feel for so many artists. So many of the great artists would do that. I was reading about Bartok recently, and he often would like go and walk in the woods, and then the melodies and things would come to him. And it's true, this is where so many artists get their inspiration.
Exactly.
The connection, obviously, Sinfonia Cymru, the connection with Welsh culture is so important to the orchestra. And I know that there's been a recent project that you've been involved in with the orchestra that's kind of been exploring that. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that and how your love for Wales and the culture has kind of influenced that particular project.
Well, yeah, completely. It's such an exciting one. It's been such an amazing way to find something still to do with the current circumstances. But, I guess the most obvious one is Welsh folk music. So, we were going to be doing this amazing project with a chamber orchestra, and we haven't been able to do that. But for a long time, for the last few years, maybe 10 years, Raki and me and my brother Davi have played our own versions of some Welsh folk songs. And so I guess the idea with this was to take that further and really kind of push it to another level. Because we're just three violins, and suddenly we had a chance to really bring it all to life in a whole new way, and explore everything we've learned about writing for strings and playing with strings, and also knowing how open everyone in the orchestra is, like knowing that we would have had lots of freedom to try things, and everyone really would have been so up for things. So it just felt like we had to bring that element into the programme, because first of all, they're really important songs to us, and they're very, they've been with us for a long time and they mean a lot to us. But also, especially with where we were going to be performing, it felt like it was a chance to really bring these songs to life to audiences in Wales in a whole new way that they might not have heard before. So hopefully they'll still get a chance to hear something.
Great. Can't wait to hear the finished result. It's very, very exciting. I saw some exciting photos the other day as well, and some videos that you posted. So, yes, can't wait to see the final result. A few days ago, I was chatting to Roberta Ruisi, and we were having some kind of really great conversations about the benefits really of cross-genre and cross-cultural collaborations, and that they're really beneficial for both players and audiences. And I know you've been involved in a number of these projects with Sinfonia Cymru, including Birdsong and the work with, of course, the fantastic Cabantu. And I was wondering if you could share your experiences of these specific projects and what made them special for you.
So many elements. I think what was amazing for me was, as a player, I was trying, I realised there was a lot more I wanted to explore beyond just classical repertoire. And even though I loved what I was doing, it felt like there was a whole world out there that I hadn't tapped into, that I felt was kind of coming to the forefront. And it kind of was amazing for then things to be popping up in Sinfonia Cymru that really coincided and actually helped me explore that and helped me develop it. So, Birdsong, I'd seen Gwilym play for years and always thought he was absolutely amazing. And, you see these people and you never think you'll get a chance to work with them in such close capacity. And that whole project, and I guess what's true of that and Cabantu and everything is that it's the energy everyone brings to it. So I think it was amazing that they saw the potential in people's creativity and saw that there was a need to give everyone the opportunity to develop that. So everyone in all the projects was so kind of up for it, brought an amazing energy. And so they never felt like one person was directing it. So with Birdsong, to bring Kizzy's amazing voice with Gwilym's arrangements, when we started playing, I was like, oh, this is my dream gig. We got to play it loads, and then we got to do some improv, like as soon as Gwilym realised we were all really up for it. And it kept developing, kept changing, all about, birdsong and climate and our relationship to nature. So it was one of those kind of total dream projects. And then you have something like Cabantu, and we all know about their infectious energy and the way, what I love about what they do is their classical training, bringing it to the forefront with folk and kind of taking all the rule books out. And it was really amazing to do that with Welsh folk students. So even though I've done these arrangements, we did them in a whole new different way that I'd never would have thought about. And they just feel like really valuable, and invaluable experiences to have, especially at this age when you've just left college, you're kind of exploring who you are, and to get a chance to be able to do that away from the norm just feels like you can't replace that opportunity. And it just feels so grateful to have had these opportunities, because it's not everywhere you get to do that, especially with your peers.
Yeah, that's so true. I think a large sort of ethos of this orchestra, which we've kind of really benefited from and been very grateful for, is that the orchestra is very committed to helping us develop skills. It's not just about, just kind of staying in the thing that we've been doing throughout our education. It's actually helping us to develop new skills. And, you're talking there about learning more about improvisation, learning more about other genres of music and how they can connect with what we already do. And that's a really special gift for us as players, but also for the audiences, because they're kind of seeing this whole other side to what can be done on the concert stage. And, even I was thinking about other things that the orchestra's helped us develop, even the fact that now we've both been involved in projects where we've kind of had more influence over sort of other aspects of the concert. So whether it's programming or even things like lighting, which feel like quite far away from, our normal remit. But I've really personally really enjoyed having those experiences, and particularly the programming. Actually, that's been really special, being able to choose the music that feels kind of close to our hearts. I mean, how have you experienced that? Have you enjoyed that opportunity as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that springs to mind for me with that is trust. It's kind of their trust in us, and for you to be able to program something and to envisage and know who you're going to be playing that with, so how much you can push people. And for me, having played programs that you have programmed felt amazing and exciting because I know you, and the energy and the kind of personal touch of all that. And when we all then created that together, like, I think one of my favourite concerts would be the Vivaldi we did with you in Pontevedra, like, especially for me to be in a hall that I grew up in, playing for the ear of, every so often, and to then be taking music of that level. And I think it's all about trust, and then to, like, when we went to Abu Dhabi and Peter asked if I wanted to put together some quartets to take to a school there, and, to be able to go somewhere like that and actually get in touch with some local culture and take something of our own to them and be given freedom to do so. And, unfortunately in May we were actually going to do more of that in the local area here, and I was really excited about putting that together. But I think really it really boils down to that trust element and how important that is actually to have as a player, and to be given that at a young age, and to be able to actually go fulfill that and go through with it. It just serves a lot of benefit to you going forward, to your confidence, to you growing as an artist, and pushing yourself to think, like, how do I want to express myself, which I think sometimes we don't get the chance to do. We get to do it through the music we play, but we don't get to think why we're playing that music or what it means to us, or to convey that to an audience. And I think it's just so important, and to have kind of an organisation there to do that for us and bringing that out of us is just, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you're so right that it is so much about trust. And I think that's why there is this special kind of wholeness about the organisation, that it doesn't feel split into players, management. There isn't this, like, really sort of clear, maybe unhealthy divide, because everybody, the players are more involved in the kind of organisational aspects of concerts, and therefore they're kind of seeing day to day the challenges that the management are up against. You're a little bit more involved in that side of things. You're seeing how hard it is to put together a programme. You're seeing how hard it is to sort out all the logistics for a concert, because you're kind of involved in all that stuff from the beginning. So it's really, I think, seeing behind the curtain on both sides it just does so much to help those relationships too. And it's just all things that I think improve music making, actually. I found that essentially you're communicating with each other from a much earlier stage. And it's interesting, I think sometimes we see, like, as musicians, we see emails that are coming in as a little bit of a kind of distraction away from our art, which sometimes they can feel a little bit like that. But I think what's really fun is if you're involved in more of these management side of things, you start to see actually how a lot of the communication around projects can have this really artistic element, and that the emails start to feel like they're more connected to what we're doing rather than separate. And you're happy to kind of keep those communication lines open and flowing, because it's all going to help that concert be really amazing at the end.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah, you definitely, like, you get some emails that you're like, oh, and then someone's like, oh, yes,
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Sim, was something that I think a lot of us have been thinking about much more over these last few months. I know we've had a couple of conversations already. But, a lot of us have really been made aware how many Black people are still on the receiving end of racism and microaggressions. And of course, classical music is no exception. We don't live in a bubble. We're part of society like everyone else. And I was reading a piece written by the conductor Brandon Keith Brown recently, and he was writing on why so few Black people go to classical concerts. And I just wanted to share a section of it with you and with our audience. To hear soprano Renee Fleming was my dream. The chance came one night at a Chicago Lyric Opera Gala concert. I left at intermission. As I first took my seat, a plump, heavily jewelled white woman scrunched up her body as if I had coronavirus. Go sit somewhere else, she said. That's not a paraphrase. That's exactly what she said. I ignored her and looked straight ahead, my eyes trained on the stage. She must be joking, I thought. But then she said it again. Can't you just go and sit somewhere else? When I told her not to say another word, she piped down, but the damage was done. I complained to a white usher, but he didn't believe me until a white couple vouched for me, a different, more insidious kind of white supremacy. Ultimately, the usher offered to move me to a different seat, not her. I wanted my money back, but was too ashamed and angry to wait. At intermission, I bolted into the Chicago night, the frigid winter air, a balm on my red-hot face. Since that night, I've never been back to the Chicago Lyric Opera. And then later he writes, I don't leave concerts inspired, spiritually rejuvenated from a transcendent classical journey. I come home weary, irritated, and pissed off by a night of justifying my presence, a laundry list of questions running through my mind. Why ask for my ticket? You're not the usher. Why did she lean far away when I sat? Did I forget deodorant? Yes, I'm a musician. No, I'm not a singer. No, I don't play jazz. I'm not the help, and I'm not your usher. Don't hand me your keys to valet your car. I won't hang your coat, stand idly holding the door, or scan your ticket. They're all important jobs, but they're just not what I get paid to do at the concert hall. I know that's a long excerpt to read, but I felt it was really important to kind of really do his piece of writing justice, and it's a really brilliant piece of writing. And I think it's a story that we're hearing much more at the moment. And I just thought it would be great for us to talk about thoughts on what classical music venues and organisations and musicians can do to take more responsibility for making our venues safe spaces for Black people.
I mean, yeah, there's like a million things, isn't there? It's such a complex situation, and, you know, to hear that things like that are still happening is so, you know, I think it's very easy in our bubble where we're around lots of liberal people to just forget that this is still an issue, and it's kind of, it's so complex. And I think, you know, it's a very kind of systemic thing, actually. It's like, there is no one answer. And, you know, if we look at like the tradition of classical music, it's from a very different background. So already that kind of alienates quite a lot of people. So I think actually it's kind of even more urgent that we find ways of including, because our traditions are so steeped in the opposite of what lots of people know and where it all comes from. And I think, I mean, I guess one thing I do think a lot about, and that I have always thought about, is how classical music is presented. And I think until on stage we can be more open and inclusive and inviting and kind of take away a lot of these barriers of tradition, then there's no hope for the audiences that we're bringing in to change. And, you know, so I think that's one, you know, because it's not just Black people who don't feel like they can come to a concert. Like, it's really unfortunate that happened in the audience. And, you know, if anything, we need to be including all types of audience in to make it inclusive for everyone. And I think the result of that would be starting to touch on this. But, you know, there are plenty of walks of life who don't feel comfortable to come into a classical concert hall or feel they're not welcome there. Even, you know, I know friends who don't feel like they're welcome there. And, you know, growing up in a very small village in Wales, and the way concerts are done here is very different, and I can imagine lots of them wouldn't feel comfortable, and they'd feel like they'd have to be a certain way or dress a certain kind. And I think there's a lot of these traditions we need to break down, basically. And you know, also I do think it starts in conservatoire as well. I feel like since all this has come up, I've thought a lot about the role of the conservatoire and how we probably should be doing more to engage in these sorts of issues that are happening around us. And, you know, we studied in a place in Manchester, which is a very diverse and kind of, it's a very vibrant city artistically, but also has a lot of, you know, like hardship there and a lot of hard history. And, you know, there are venues and organisations very close to the college that we never collaborated with. But there's never like community projects going on. There's never like there's not enough attempt, I don't think, to bridge the gaps between what's going on. And, you know, I'd even get in cabs and you kind of, you're kind of the other world in that building. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that music college, you know, it's kind of, and it shouldn't be that. It should be that, you know, if we're creating the next generation of artists, then those artists need to be creating the movements of today and engaging with the issues of today. So I do think, you know, it's so complex, and it's like, it's how we program stuff, it's where we do it. We can take it out of concert halls. You know, we're already seeing with some organisations that there's proper value in doing that, and if you want to connect with different audiences, sometimes you have to go to them. And with also just maybe questioning the way and why we're making art in the first place, and why we're playing these pieces. And yes, they're from a long time ago, but they're still very relevant, and the whole point is that we know that the beauty of these pieces has the power to touch anyone. But unfortunately, it's everything around that needs to change, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, it's not something that can be kind of solved like that. We all know this, otherwise, you know, probably would have been already. It's really kind of complex situation. And I think what a lot of us are talking about at the moment is balancing, looking to see that kind of big long-term change and doing things that are going to impact that long-term change. And then, you know, also seeing how we can like make stand for people short-term as well. You know, I've been thinking about this story a lot, and how there are so many aspects of the story that really disturbed me, even just like the fact that, you know, the staff at the hall didn't actually know how to deal with that situation appropriately. And, you know, I think it's interesting, like we're certainly all learning much more, aren't we, about how we all have unconscious bias, essentially, and, you know, managing that. And it's been interesting to read about these tests, these unconscious bias tests. And I wonder whether it could be helpful for like all venue staff, you know, even orchestra players and management educators, all doing these tests, maybe even annually. You know, it's kind of like a yearly reminder, this is still a problem. We still have to kind of be really super aware. So it's kind of interesting. I think that there are things, there's these two strands, aren't there, of like the long-term, looking for the long-term change, but also trying to kind of do things short-term to help too. I was thinking, actually, I mean, I'm not for a minute going to equate my issues with sexuality with race, because they're not the same. They're very, very different. But I do know that when I was looking for a church that I wanted to be accepting of me as a gay person, that I was really affected by if that place kind of made a very public display of their acceptance of people from the LGBTQ community. If you know, sometimes places would have a banner, or they might have like a written statement on their website that just said, we are accepting of these people and we are against all discrimination against these people. And that even just seeing that or being aware of that made me feel safe. And, you know, if that's what we have to do in our concert spaces, you know, being actively anti-racist, you know, having a statement that says, as people walk into the concert hall even, you know, discrimination will not be tolerated. It's just like, I don't know, like, I feel like we want to do whatever we can to help people feel, exactly as you say, welcome, you know. And you're right, you know, we've got to engage with our local communities. We've got to find those connections as well.
I think, yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention about that issue was kind of also, it's to do with representation in our world, isn't it? And I guess this, again, starts at the grassroots and probably starts at education level. But again, the more included Black people are in our world, and the more opportunities they're given, and the more they're represented on stage, the more that will then also filter into the audiences, you know, because I've played in Chineke, and it is quite amazing when you do a concert and you see the audience is full of a totally different world, and it's amazing, actually, and it really feels like a movement, you know. And I think the dream is for that just to be the norm, isn't it? Like, it's hard to feel like, yeah, the dream is that they do feel included and those opportunities are there. But I guess, yeah, again, this is such a big issue, but I think it's also, yeah, it's down to representation and figuring out where that begins and how we can help that, and how we can aid that, basically.
Absolutely, totally agree. So, of course, a massive, massive issue, which, you know, we're not going to solve here, we're not going to solve tomorrow, but it's just great to keep having these conversations, isn't it? And I hope it's, you know, they continue to happen for a long time until we see things improve. The last thing I just want to chat to you about, Sim, is it's kind of connected to what we've been talking about a fair bit, you know, your experience growing up in Wales and you know, your sort of your experiences of studying music and being at conservatoire. Just wondered if, you know, you had any special teachers or special music groups or festivals that you were part of when you were a young musician in Wales, and, you know, whether there were any that were particularly special to you.
It's hard to pinpoint like one thing, but actually what I've been thinking a lot about, and even recently we watched this documentary that we did on us years ago.
I love that documentary, it's so cute.
But the main thing is just, I think the climate for music in Wales is, and I don't know what it's like now, but for us growing up, it was so amazing and it was so strong and vibrant. And I think, you know, the things that I'll never forget are the kind of male voice choir concerts that we would do. So we, you know, you'd be asked to go and play in a community concert and you'd have the whole choir sitting behind you and they're all like your grandpa and they're all so friendly, and then you would do a few spots, and just having those opportunities and also being part of those communities, you know, where like it was steeped in like Welsh tradition, and at the end you'd be singing the anthem and stuff, but it was more, you know, the whole community would come out. And so having those sorts of opportunities, I think I realise now how lucky we were actually, and, you know, the chance to perform from such a young age. And then, you know, there's like plenty of music festivals and music competitions, and, you know, I did the Texco Young Musician, which was kind of like almost kind of like the BBC equivalent of Wales, where everyone got a chance to do a big thing and you get to play with orchestra. And I think it's just the general support and energy there is for it. And I think, you know, there's one thing that we've been thinking a lot, me and Rax, about, you know, recently, like wanting to find out how that tradition of male voice choirs is, and like hoping that it's not dying out, and what we can do to kind of, you know, and not music, Wales is the land of song, and even things like the Eisteddfod, you know, every year we would go to this amazing Welsh festival where you go in the mud, it's always cold, there's nowhere to rehearse, it's never the most glamorous thing, but having those opportunities and getting on stage, getting nervous, and then you're playing on telly on S4C, and all these things just really gave us so many opportunities to get used to the stage, basically, and to also be recognised. And I think, yeah, just having that community around, and now recently, you know, I've just got something from the Arts Council, and it just feels like there's a lot of support for the creatives here, and I think I didn't realise how valuable that was until leaving, and then realising how amazing it was to have those opportunities.
Great. Well, Sim, this has just been such a pleasure. I mean, I wish we could carry on talking forever.
I know, I think we could.
Yeah, we could. We could just keep going. But it's been really wonderful to share these ideas with you and to talk about things that we're both really passionate about. And I just can't wait until we can actually play together again with the orchestra, in front of audiences. We'll all be kind of just really looking forward to that, and can't wait to do it again.
No, thanks, Carl. It's amazing.
Thanks, Sim. It's been great.